I'm going to explain to you the different types of graphics cards you have, mainly the differences between a PCI graphics card and an AGP graphics card. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is the actual size, the physical size of both of these graphics cards. As you can see, one is a little bit bigger than the other one, lengthwise, and that's just, sometimes it's a good way to gauge the power and the abilities of the different graphics cards. Depending, if they're both relatively new, say they were made in the same year, then it's generally a good idea just to assume that the bigger graphics card is going to be the more powerful one. And another good way is most of the really powerful graphics cards will have a fan over here. As you can see, this one right here just has a heatsink on it, so it'd be safe to assume that this isn't a very powerful graphics card. Whereas if you look at this one, it's got both a heatsink and a fan on it, so when this thing operates, this fan will actually turn and move to help keep this graphics card cool down. Another thing that I should mention is another good way to gauge the powers and abilities of a graphics card is this little connector right here. I'm actually going to turn this around and let you get kind of a good look at it. It's if you've been following along in the movies I've been making so far, you'll notice that that is a Molex connector slot. And basically all that means is that you will need to connect a Molex connector to it to supply a little bit more power to it. That way it can operate to the best of its abilities. The next thing I want to mention to you is the front side of these graphics cards. If you take a look at this one, you can see that this actually has a spot for two monitor hookups. And yes, this does mean that you can actually connect two monitors to the same computer. And if you could look at our little display back here, we have actually three monitors connected to the same computer. That requires the use of at least two graphics cards to your computer. And one last thing I want to note is if you come over here and look at this graphics card right here, we have this blue monitor connection right here, but we also have this white one. And the differences between these two is this blue one is called a VGA and this white one is called a DVI. Generally, when you're hooking up a flat screen monitor or an LCD monitor, they will require these DVI ports on the back of your graphics cards. But if they don't come supplied with one, it's really no big deal, because depending on the type of monitor you have, it really varies whether or not it comes shipped with a VGA connection or a DVI connection. But you can go to your local gadget store such as Radio Shack, for example, and buy these nifty little adapters that you can pretty much switch out and use on whim. So it really doesn't matter what the back of these or the front of these cards actually have for these connectors, because you can always just buy this little adapter, and they range anywhere from $5 to about $15 depending on where you're planning on purchasing them. And in closing, I'd like to mention that some graphics cards come with nifty little utilities. As you can see, both of these graphics cards have this black little spot here, and that's a good way where you can hook up anything that is based off of an S-video cord. You can connect a DVD player up to it, for example, or any other type of preference that needs an S-video port.